Hello everybody! Can my voice stop cracking? Hello. In this video, I will be going over 5 backrooms levels that are traps. You cannot escape these levels. They are literally there just to trap you. This is a part 2 to the series that I started a couple months ago. Part 1 will be in the description below if you want to go check it out. It's got 1 million views. Thank you all for that. I appreciate it. But these levels in today's video are specifically known for how scary they are. They have awful environments, terrible effects, and there just may or may not be an entity or two lurking to try to consume you whole, or while you're alive. These levels draw you in and keep you walking deeper into them, just to trap you and consume you. You know the drill by now. If you enjoy this type of compilation video, leave a like, I'll do more. If this video gets 10,000 likes, I will produce the 20-hour backrooms video before New Year's Day. Anyways, without further ado, grab a bucket of popcorn, grab a Kit Kat or an M&M or something like that, and a Dr. Pepper, sit back and relax, and get ready to hear about these terrifying trap backrooms levels. Level 257 has been given a class variable safety rating because it's not stable. There are a couple entities that you're probably going to run into, and the safety changes depending on where you go inside of it. The level is comprised inside of a huge indoor inflatable park. This park itself is split up into a bunch of different rooms and halls and corridors that you can explore. These huge, massive open areas are connected by small hallways, and the areas can take the appearance of bounce houses, trampoline parks, slides, ball pits, foam pits, pretty much anything you could expect from a real-life indoor bounce house theme park thing. The hallways that connect these giant rooms are superficial, and they often lead to false exits and dead ends. A lot of times there's doors that lead to the hallways that have giant exit signs over them, and they don't even work. It's all fake. Usually the halls are tiled or carpeted, and they take the appearance of hallways from real-life bounce houses and trampoline parks. The entirety of the level, just like a ton of other ones, has very strange geometry, and because of this, everything is constantly shifting and warping. Sort of like how a Rubik's Cube works, that's how the entire complex moves around here. The shifting and warping is actually pretty deadly, especially if you are stuck near where a shift is happening. So if you're in a hallway walking from room to room and a shift happens, you might glitch into the wall that's glitching and suffocate. Or if you're in like a ball pit when it's glitching, you might fall into that glitch and never be seen again. But don't worry about all that, let's get to the rest of the level. When you wake up inside of this level, you'll see that you're in a huge open room. This room could be any of the ones I listed. It could be a bounce house, it could be a trampoline park, it could be a foam pit. Whatever the case is, this is where you will wake up. And there's a few things that you should be aware of right off the bat. For one, the lights in this level that are above you emit a very mild gamma radiation signal. So you might notice that they seem oddly bright in some parts, and that's because of the radiation. If you stand underneath these lights for a long period of time, typically for like 20 minutes or so, the likelihood is you will get radiation sickness. Now you can try to find light switches and stuff to turn them off, but they won't work because they don't even run off of electric, and the light switches seem to be fake. Yay. Some of the rooms are bright and some of them are dark. And it's in these dark areas where the geometry stuff that I just mentioned is more likely to happen. That's why the hallways are more common to glitch. This geometry effect on this level is known as non-commutative geometry, and it's pretty much the main problem that you'll face right off the bat. But essentially what this means is that you can't really walk or use anything and expect it to work the way it should. Like if you're up on a slide or something and you're about to go down inside of it, you could choose one slide thinking it will lead you one direction, but you'll go down and you'll end up coming out of another slide across the room. Or if you want to jump into a certain ball pit or something, you run and jump inside, but once you hit the floor, you're actually jumping on a different trampoline in a different part. It's almost like a destination randomizer. So you can either have fun with it and just go down a bunch of random directions, or you can let it freak you out. It's up to you. When you're here though, you can actually use all of the equipment. You can bounce around on the inflatables, you can use the ball pits and the foam pits and the slides and the rock walls. Just beware of the geometry stuff I mentioned and that should be okay. But while being in this level and going from room to room through the halls, you do need to be aware of a few things besides the non-commutative geometry shifting. Those things are the lack of clean almond water, hallucinations, and a few entities that you might find, as well as the way new rooms form. And I'll get into all those in a second. Most of them are pretty self-explanatory though. New rooms forming is a unique thing to this specific level, because if you're here, if you walk around and you break anything, whether it's breaking a bounce house, breaking a computer at the front desk, cracking a tile on the floor. If you do that, a new room will form. So anytime you break the level at all, a new part of the level will form. Now, it's not a good idea to try to find where this new part of the level formed. Now, when the new formation happens, a door and a sign will appear on a random area inside the room you're in. Now, you need to be aware because it is not a good idea to immediately go into a new room once it's formed, because they're extremely unstable and they're made mostly out of this glitchy void-like substance for about the first 24 hours. It's almost like the level has to have a 24-hour period to form. But after that next day, you can then open the door and walk in, and you'll be greeted with a completely new room and a new door on the other side and new decorations and a new layout. So because of that, this level is infinite. It has no end, and as long as you keep breaking things or even just cracking or scratching things, a new part of the level will form. It's very important to try to explore these new levels after that 24-hour period as well, because this is the only time where you might find fresh almond water as well as other resources. There are also specific pill-like substances that are available on the counters and tables in these newly formed areas. I'll explain that later, but it can be really useful to explore these new parts right as soon as you can after that 24 hours, just to get the resources. And the reason is because this level disposes of all organic life, even humans after a certain amount of time. Humans and entities can typically survive longer than other things like bacteria and viruses and food, but still, if you stay here for a really long time, you will begin to break down at a molecular level. The level is almost sterilely clean. It's very, very spotless, and that's because any biological thing just gets cleaned off by the level. And that goes for food and water here as well. If you bring food or water, even if it's almond water, and you leave it out without drinking it, it will turn into liquid pain or something bad, or it will just simply go away. As if the level just consumes everything that's good, which is just amazing. I love it. No, I don't, not at all. But if you couple the almond water getting taken back from the level and cleaned away, as well as the gamma radiation from the lights, as well as the geometry issues, this is what causes the hallucinations, and people can easily just lose their minds here. Speaking of which, after a few days or weeks here, you might begin to notice these hallucinations form more and more. It might start with a floater in your eye or weird shadows in your peripheral visions, but if you stay here for longer than that, more things are not uncommon to see. Things like entities crawling around in the ball pits or creatures swarming around the bounce houses. It's assumed that these are real and they wait for your sanity to break down to attack you, but they also could be a hallucination. It's really hard to tell in this level. But the geometry, the gamma rays, the lack of almond water, the hallucinations, all of these cause really high stress levels, and in some case, people have lost their eyesight due to the high level of stress. So it sounds like the level's out to get you. The level just emits feelings of emptiness and sorrow, and it's all mixed together with this nostalgic background. These places, these layouts, they remind most people of their childhood, their innocence. But instead of visiting these places for a few hours like you would as a kid, you're stuck here in this level forever, with nothing but the inflatables and the smell of plastic for infinity. And depending on how good you are when you're alone, mentally, this will determine if you survive the level. Because if you give into the madness and the insanity and being stranded and isolated, you probably will not make it too far through any of the rooms. Now, as I mentioned earlier in this section, there are a few entities that live here, and those are the hydrolytis plague, bacterias, a few windows, and some other mysterious things that you might see after being dehydrated and losing your sanity for a while. Now, the hydrolytis plague is pretty rare on this level, and it only lives inside of water bottles that have been left out. Drinking that water with the plague inside can lead to congestion and migraines and delirium as well, and it pretty much just makes everything worse. Window entities are also here, and they tend to appear when the wanderer is losing their mind. They're at their breaking point. Like right when a person is about to begin the wretched cycle and they're about to turn into a wretch, these windows appear and they attract wanderers in this delirious state to themselves. Windows themselves often portray an exit or an exterior that you might be able to get to, and since wanderers think that's the way out, they'll run to the window and they'll be consumed by the window. Other than these things, those strange creatures that you might see after you lose your sanity more and more, like I said, it's unknown if they're real, but they have been described as tall humanoids with exaggerated features. That's all I have on them right now. Sorry. Now, earlier I mentioned when new rooms are formed inside this level, almond water and specific pills can be found on tables and desks after the room is formed. There are red pills, orange ones, yellow ones, green ones, blue ones, and indigo, and these have all been documented giving each individual person different effects after they take them. The pills can either hurt or help your chances of survival here, and you might want to use them to escape. The red pill contains high amounts of electrolytes, so it can kind of give you a short-term energy boost for running or bouncing around anywhere, and it could be useful if you're trying to run away to get to the exits. The orange pill is known to cause deficiency in vitamins, and this can cause your motor skills to stop working right, and it can cause you to be tired. The yellow pill causes energy boosts randomly to any person that takes them, and it can be good or bad depending on when the boosts happen. You can't control them. They can happen while you're sleeping, they can happen while you're awake, just depends on where you're at. The green pill contains a high amount of vitamin C, which heightens brain functions and makes you think really fast. This can be helpful as well while trying to regain your sanity. The blue pill is the worst because it just kind of gives you the same effect as liquid pain does. It causes joint problems, it causes sickness and migraines, it causes things like that. However, it can be used against entities though as an offensive weapon, like crushing it up and spraying the powder on them, so you can do that as well, but do not take them yourself. And finally, the rarest pill, it's the indigo pill, and it's only a theoretical because there's only one report of it existing. If you take it, it's said that your mind might break into a million hallucinations. So don't try one if you see it, I guess. These pills are very enigmatic and are not seen on any other level in the backrooms, only here. Let me know in the comments if you would try them. It's a very interesting concept, I think. The pills themselves are located at the front desks of these different rooms. If you've ever been inside of a bounce house or a trampoline park in real life, you notice the front desk. That's where they're at here. To enter this entire level, you can go through a trap door on level 276 that is labeled Nostalgia, and you'll wake up in a random room here and you'll experience what I just explained. To exit, you can locate an area of the level that seems to be voided or unrendered. So you can cause an unrendered level by scratching or breaking something in the level and it'll open up a new area. That is an unrendered place and you can use it to exit. Just make sure it's glowing white, and once you do that, you can no-clip and you might get sent to level 280. This level is a pretty high risk, high reward type of situation. You know, the risks of getting trapped between glitching hallways or unrendered bounce house rooms and then losing your mind, that's a high risk, but it might be outweighed by the fact that you can find those very enigmatic pills here and maybe use them as currency or weapons in different levels. Also, you could just jump around on bounce houses forever. That's pretty fun to me. Negative 404 is the negative 405th level of the backrooms, and it's been given a class 5 difficulty rating due to it being unsafe and unstable with strange entity properties as well as strange musical effects. Both of those things play a huge role in this level. The level looks to take place inside of a very nicely decorated, brightly colored Victorian-era house. There are many different areas in this house, and each of them play a specific role in this level. I'll get into each individual place later, but those areas are the following. There's a master bedroom, there are 5 identical spare bedrooms, there's a kitchen, a dining room, a bathroom, a living room, a full furnished basement, a sunroom, and the hallways that connect all of them. All of those different rooms have different properties and effects that I will get into in a second. But first, let me tell you what happens when you get sent to this level. When you wake up here, you could be in or outside of any of those rooms I just mentioned. The level itself is always in a state of mid-morning, so there's always going to be sun shining through the windows, and there's no day or night cycle, so it never gets dark. To be honest, a lot of people think this level is safe when they first get sent here because the decorations are cozy, it just seems like a house, the temperature is moderate, there's light from outside, there's classical music playing off in the distance. It just seems like a really nice house, like a bed and breakfast or something. Outside of the windows in the house, there is nothing to explore. It's kind of just this white void for as far as you can see, but that does provide ample lighting for the inside. However, if you watched my Backrooms rules video, then you know never to approach windows at all, especially ones that you see inside of houses and levels, because you might become a victim of that window. The house itself is unique in that there are posted rules on pieces of paper laying around on the walls and on the tables. These rules are very, very important to follow if you don't want to end up dead. If you don't follow the rules at all, you probably won't make it out of the level, so it is pivotal that you understand and follow them. The main house rule that pertains to this video is that whenever you're in this level and the music that you hear off in the distance stops playing, you need to hide instantly. Now, I just mentioned that there is this classical music melody playing off in the distance throughout the halls and rooms here, and that music will randomly stop playing abruptly without warning. After that happens, you'll have just 20 to 30 seconds to hide before it comes out, or more specifically, before they come out. Now, luckily for you all, each of these rooms has their own protocol for hiding and running away from them, and I'll be getting into all that right now. To survive the master bedroom, you'll walk inside of it, and you'll notice that the door will instantly slam itself behind you. Once this door slams, you will need to run to the closest corner that you see of the room and stare into that corner, and no matter what you do, do not turn around, do not look behind you. One of them resides inside of this room, and after you get into the corner and start staring at the corner, whatever it is will examine you from behind. It might sniff your hair, it might breathe on your neck, it might lick your ear. Whatever happens, whatever you feel, do not turn around. Just continue staring straight at the corner, at the wall, and it will go away eventually. After a few minutes of staring and going through whatever it's doing to you, the entity will then retreat back to under the bed, to its lair or wherever it lives under there. Now, once you survive all that, there are some other rules that you're going to want to follow as well for inside of the master bedroom. Do not get on the bed because it, whatever it is, lives underneath it and it doesn't like when you get on it. Always leave the curtains on inside of this room as well and leave them open, that way there's light shining in. And do not look at your own reflection in the mirror inside the master bedroom because whatever is inside the mirror looking back is not you. But once you follow all those rules and once it retreats under the bed, you can then leave and go back out to explore the level. If you find yourself in any of the spare bedrooms on this level, there are 5 of them, you'll notice how odd they are right off the bat. Most of these spare rooms' furniture is extremely large. It's way bigger than a normal person's furniture would be, which indicates that a large entity or person lives there. It's advised to not enter these spare rooms at all if you can help it, especially if their doors are closed. Never open a spare bedroom's door on this level. It doesn't like it. Of course it doesn't like anything. But if you do walk into a room, you'll notice that its furniture's huge, and you'll notice that it just is very weird. The decorations are pretty normal, but just know that if you do walk in, you need to just slowly back out. The rules for surviving these spare bedrooms and when the music stops here is pretty simple. If you walk into one of the rooms and you see catnip anywhere on the bed, on the table, do not investigate further and just walk away. If the music stops playing while you're in a spare bedroom, you're in the most dangerous part of the level already, so good luck with what's about to come and hurt you. You're in the most dangerous place on the level already, and the music stopping just makes it worse. So good luck. You're gonna need it. If you find yourself in the kitchen of this house, do not drink from the sink at all, and that's because liquid pain seems to flow out of its faucet. Do your best not to touch any of the plates here either, because you don't want to drop and break anything at all. If you walk inside the kitchen door, there's a chance that the door will slam behind you. If the door does indeed slam behind you, the level will increase its temperature inside of the kitchen, and it'll begin to heat up and essentially cook you like an oven. If you're inside the kitchen when the music stops playing, the only way you can survive is by climbing on top of the counter, closing your eyes, and not opening them until it passes. You'll know when it passes when all the noises stop, and you'll be able to get off the counter and walk away. If you're in the bathroom on this level, do not drink the sink water either, it's liquid pain, and if the mirror inside the bathroom is cracked, do not touch it. If the music stops playing when you're inside the bathroom, you need to get inside the bathtub and close your eyes and do not move. He will stare at you the entire time that you're in the bathtub, but he will not hurt you, and just don't look at him and you'll be okay. If you're in the living room or if you find yourself walking into the living room, congratulations, you finally found one of the better areas here. There's a couch you can sit on, and there's books you can read. If blood leaks out of the couch when you sit down, that means you'll probably not survive very long. If you're inside the living room when the music stops playing on this level, you need to sit on the couch, pick up a book, turn to a random page, and start reading whatever it is. No matter what appears behind you, do not turn around, do not look it in its eyes. It doesn't like that at all. Just stare at the book you have in your hands as long as you can, and it'll eventually go away. There's another room called the study here, which is kind of just like an office. And if you walk inside the study or if you're exploring inside of it, just don't touch anything here and don't look at the windows. If you're inside this part when the music stops, go to the desk, fold your arms, and close your eyes. Sit inside the chair with your arms crossed and your eyes closed for as long as you can, because they're in here as well, and one will likely begin to investigate you, similarly to the other parts of the level where they investigate you. Your ear might get sniffed, your hair might get stroked, there might be something laughing, just whatever it is, do not open your eyes at all. They will leave after about 20 minutes. Now, if you thought all those were bad, the last two rooms are even worse. So congratulations for making it this far. The basement and the sunroom are areas that should be avoided in this house at all costs. I mean, you should avoid the level, but specifically the basement and the sunroom. If you get to the basement, it is said that you have no longer than 10 seconds to get out. If you do not get out in those 10 seconds, you'll be trapped for about 30 minutes in this furnished basement, which means you have to survive for 30 minutes. If you're trapped, do not investigate any of the TVs or the couch or the tables or any pictures down here. And if for some reason you're in the basement when the music stops playing, hide in the cushions that you see in the couch. Dive between them and dig yourself down. But whatever you do, do not search for loose change inside of those cushions, because you will not be seen again if you do. But after about 20 minutes, it'll leave you and you can get out of the cushions and walk back upstairs and the door will be unlocked. Finally, the sunroom area. Now, this part of the page simply says, do not enter this room, which is easy enough, and you should follow that. But if for some reason you went into the sunroom, maybe you're dumb, maybe you just want to 100% complete the backrooms, I don't know, you'll experience a very painful ending. Because when you cross into the threshold of the sunroom, the light from the outside will increase into this blinding white light, and you'll be absorbed into it and never be seen again. This is the only place where the creatures that lurk here won't even touch you, because the light does all the work for them. So those were all of the areas that you can explore inside of this giant house. Each one of them, of course, having those different properties and different methods of survival. And if you follow all the rules I mentioned, you should be able to make it out of each room. The music that I kept mentioning that's playing is what I said. It's that soft, classical music, kind of playing in an ambient volume. No one knows who controls the music, no one has heard the song that's playing, and it's not really known why it stops or why it triggers them to come out when it stops. But if you follow those rules of what I said to do when the music stops, you should be able to be okay. Maybe. Don't quote me on that. But the question that looms over all is, what exactly are these entities that lurk here? The article pretty much tells us nothing about them, and it only refers to them as they, which likely means there's multiple instances of whatever they are. This is backed up by the fact that the house is so big, but these things live in each room. There's probably multiple of them. Now, as for what they actually are, we can really only speculate and take our best guess because there's no information about them on the page. They're known to be pretty large, they're known to communicate and approach humans and inspect them. Like I said, they might lick you or sniff you or touch you, and I'm also going to assume they blend in very well to the shadows, because in the master bedroom, that one lives under the bed. So I'm just going to assume that they are tall, skinny, humanoid type entities that are either made out of shadows or blend into shadows well. They're very sentient because they choose when to attack, and they're also extremely terrifying for people that encounter them, because as I said multiple times, you have to close your eyes and not even look at them. So whatever these are, they are so horrific that our natural human response is just to be terrified to be in the same room as them, because you can feel the fear even if your eyes are closed. They are some sort of morbid human shadow that tortures humans for fun. Nice! The last section of the level is titled Nuances, and it simply says you are being timed, but for how long is not disclosed to you. Following the hiding protocol for any room does not guarantee your safety. And finally, trapping you in the sunroom is the goal, but sometimes they cannot wait or help themselves. So that pretty much tells you that you're screwed if you get sent to this level. Because even the rules and regulations and whatever and the protocols, they might not even help you. To enter this level, you can no-clip through a wall on level 17 to be sent here, and you can also just get sent here by accident, which is the most dangerous part of it. And if you want to leave, there's actually a pretty big list of exits. All of them seem to be strange though, in the fact that they mainly happen accidentally. Like you can trip and fall and be sent to level 39, or you can crawl under a cabinet to be sent to level -18. These exits are not guaranteed to work, and it could just trap you even further in the level. But just be sure, whatever you do, if you didn't hear anything else in this video, if you just tuned me out, make sure you start hiding and close your eyes when the music stops playing on this level, since it seems like whatever they are come out when that happens. Paradise 772 is split into 6 distinct layers, 6 different areas. On the page that this level's on, they're referred to as trials. That's what the author calls them. So each of these trials has its own properties, its own effects, its own hazards and all that, and they all lead to the final layer, which is the nullscape, the most deadly part of Paradise 772, that is the out of bounds area. But before we talk about the out of bounds area, I will go over all these 6 distinct layers. Each of them, of course, I'll go over in order, that way it makes more sense to you. And first, I want to read through the opening paragraph of the page, that way you can kind of get the tone that each of the layers was going for, and all these trials and what they might mean. Trust me, you're going to want to hear this. Quote, "It is highly likely that Paradise 772 possesses some kind of info-hazardous properties, as I fail to recall certain memories and information regarding the level. In fact, when I was writing this article, certain memories seemed obvious to me, but they were all erased just as I was about to write the information, leaving me empty-headed, immobilized in front of my keyboard, knowing while not knowing what to say, as if some kind of phenomenon has erased or altered my thoughts at the last moment. And this effect seems to grow stronger the deeper I go into my memories of Paradise 772. What's more, when I try to persist, I almost end up hurting myself, but there's no point in trying to overcome this effect. It's not worth it. This report was written by myself based on what I remember at the moment, so anything I claim in this article should be taken lightly. Chances are the information you see does not represent reality. In fact, I'm even convinced that certain elements of the article are likely to change as you look away from the screen. You've been warned. As I understand it, Paradise 772 is divided into several layers, which are presented as trials. Passing all of these trials will lead you to the final area, God's residence. End quote. So yeah, you can kind of get the vibe of this entire wasteland and layers and not paradise of the level from that little thing I just read. But with all that out of the way, all the introduction and the exposition gone, let's go ahead and get into layer 1, the first one. Remember, the author said not to trust any of this stuff, so keep that in your mind and take all this with a grain of salt. Layer 1, Solitude. Layer 1 has been given the classification of Class 1 and is safe and secure, allegedly. Again, don't trust it. And it looks to be an endless flat landscape that expands out in every direction as far as you can see. The only thing in this flat expanse is identical street lights and lamps that emit light spaced out evenly forever. A heavy and oppressive, thick black sky hangs above you. So it's just really dark. The darkness is almost something you can feel, it's so dark. But all of this leaves the level in a perpetual nighttime. The land and the ground itself that you're on, this infinite plane, is pitch black. There's nothing to it. It kind of resembles concrete, but it's very dark. And like I said, it just goes on forever. The street lamps are the only source of light that you will have when you're exploring this first layer. And even then, you will not be able to see much because the lights don't really emit that much light. Actually, they're kind of stupid and useless. The lights themselves are around 4 meters tall, and like I said, they don't really do much, and since they're that tall, the light barely reaches the ground. Thank you so much. I really thank you for helping me out here. On this layer though, rarely, you might encounter an entity that is very weird and kind of unique to this specific layer. Off in the distance, you might see a shadowy humanoid figure standing at the base of the lamp or in the middle of the black expanse of ground beneath you. These entities have no features, and they're kind of just a general shape of a shadow and a human put together, and they have not done anything hostile yet, but they look really weird and they might mess up your mind if you let them. So that's it for this first layer. It's just an infinite expanse of darkness with small street lamps, and this is just the beginning. It's already weird, but it is gonna get worse, I promise. Next, of course, is layer 2, which is named AUTORUN, which is Latin for infinity or forever. This layer has been given a class 4 difficulty, which is a big jump from the first layer. First one was class 1, this is class 4, but this has been given a class 4 for being unsafe and unsecure. The layer takes the appearance of a brightly colored grassy field resembling the countryside of Western Europe. There are 2 old buildings that are made out of bricks and wood in this field, and that's literally it. That's all you can see. When you enter this layer, you'll notice one thing right off the bat though, and this is the thing that makes it strange. Where a sun or a light-emitting thing should be, in its place is a large glowing countdown clock. So there's no sun, just numbers where a sun should be, and there are 4 big red digits where that sun should be. The countdown has been shown to be a cycle, and it causes this layer to be split into several different phases 1 through 4 specifically, each of which is more dangerous than the last. And each of these phases sees this layer get more decayed, more crumbling, darker, and more unstable the further you get into the phases. So phase 1 is pretty normal for a few minutes, and then phase 2 will happen in 3 and 4. Each of them, the layer will get darker and more corrupted. Eventually in phase 4, the field will be very dark, and the grass and the houses will just be outlines, and it'll kind of be stripped from all textures. And at this phase, you'll eventually begin to pass out and kind of slowly faint away once you see what's happening. This fainting is the only way to get to the next layer, so if you want to do that, you gotta deal with it. Sorry. Layer 3 has been named Grief. This has been given a class 0 difficulty. Again, I wouldn't believe that if I were you. They're probably not telling the truth. And this specific sublayer takes the appearance of a vast, expanding ocean that's green, with a small island with a lighthouse on it. When you get sent to this sublayer, you will spawn on this lighthouse island, looking out to the green sea beyond. This green glow that the ocean gives off is contrasted by a very dark and very impressive sky and horizon. The entire level sort of feels like a sensory deprivation chamber. There's no real noise. The water here has a weird chemical makeup, and it's said to taste salty, but not like an ocean salt. Instead, it tastes more like tears. While you sit here on this small island with your little lighthouse and stuff in the middle of this ocean, you'll be able to hear faint whispers echoing from beneath the water and beyond the expanse in front of you. Do not follow the whispers into the sea. In order to get to the next layer, you have to jump in and swim straight down as far as you can, but do not follow or swim towards the whispers at all. And if you do all that and you swim down, you will eventually wake up in level 4, Despair. This layer has been given a class Dead Zone classification rating for its environment being toxic, eternal torment, and the presence of a god. That's gotta be the most insane level graphic I've ever seen, but moving on from that. Layer 4 consists of hell. That's literally what the description says. I cannot make this up. I'm just telling you what the wiki says. Reading further down though, we can see that this layer, layer 4, is an expanding plane cast in a red, foggy, misty shadow. The plane below you is just infinite concrete, and everything around you is shrouded in red mist. The only things visible through this red, foggy mist is 2 gigantic black gates off in the distance. These gates and door things are so tall, you can't really see the top. They just disappear into that red fog. And the entire level is oppressive. The smell of decay and death is apparent and everywhere, and it'll clog your nose. This red mist is sharp to the touch. It just feels like it's trying to hurt you, and the monolithic black gates in front of you look like the very gates of hell itself. This layer has been described by the author as a slaughterhouse or a death factory. So if that doesn't make you understand how dangerous it is, I can't help you. Sorry. But I want to go ahead and read a short paragraph from this layer to kind of explain more about it. Quote, "Upon arrival, thou shalt not be able to escape the horrors these premises have to offer. A macabre, disgusting, and sinister environment, where the floor and the walls sweat blood, where the deafening noises generated by the heavy machinery echo in all corners. The imposing meat grinders and the giant presses crush chunks of flesh and bones, while the giant blades of the mixers blend it all into vulgar soup of scalding blood, resulting in an atmosphere polluted by blood steam taking the form of a thick red fog covering the hellscape, stinging the eyes as the smell of flesh and blood mix with the toxic smell of iron. As you probably guessed, this is my prototype of hell." So yeah, that sounds like some All Tomorrows type stuff, some eldritch horror stuff. Just great. Love that. What am I doing in my life? But yeah, this layer so far is one of the worst. But moving on to the second to last layer, known as 5 or Hope. Not much is documented about this one on the website. Literally all this screenshot I'm showing you is all there is, but it's been given a class pending for it being pending. But from the images we've been given, it seems to be some sort of unstable mess and conglomeration of glitches and artifacts. Similar to the broken level, this one is a dimension of unstable and collapsing architecture, kind of in a state of destruction. In order to make it through this hope level, you have to kind of swim through the glitches to get to the next layer, the final layer, which of course is the fabled out of bounds area that I've been mentioning the whole video, the one and only Paradise 772. Layer 6 is this final layer of this entire complex, and you have to get through all of what I just described to get to this layer. I don't know if it's worth it. I don't know if I can recommend it either, but it's pretty cool what we're about to see. Layer 6 is nicknamed Paradise 772, and the classification it's been given is uninhabitable and unsafe for life, for many reasons. Paradise 772 resembles something like a video game sandbox. Everything in this area and in this layer has an unfinished texture that kind of looks like old CGI. There are conceptual entities roaming about. There are building prototypes, and there are strange shapes all over. The entire place kind of seems like a template for something that's about to be built, not something that already is constructed. There are polygons and other shapes as well, and there are glowing lines that form around boxes scattered through the layer's main platforms. All of it seems like the design of a place that has not been put together, has not been textured, has not been animated. It seems like something you should not be able to explore. Paradise 772 has been split into two specific sections though, the residential area and the town place. Now the residential area looks like a giant unfinished penthouse with asymmetrical shapes and layouts and polygons. There's no furniture or anything like that to speak of, no decorations, nothing, just black walls and basic shapes of outlines, and it all looks unfinished and untextured. And because it's that way, the physical geometry of Paradise 772 is so glitchy, it's so unstable, you really can barely exist here. This level treats your body sort of like someone crushing a tin can repeatedly over and over again. It's like you're not supposed to be here and it knows it. There are boxes and pillars and eyes and strange shapes all over these unfinished textures, and it's said that if you interact with any of it, if you touch it, if you go through it, then your head will be unfolded and you will be turned into simple matter, which is just nice. That's all I can say. Nice. The second area of this wonderful Paradise 772 is called the town place, and this area resembles an ancient Grecian town with its architecture. There are temples and statues and all of that, again, all of which are outlines and textureless. Everything can be explored, but nothing can be touched, like I said, unless you want to be unfolded and broken down to bits of matter. The rest of the expanse of this paradise takes the appearance of a geometrical grid that this entire place is sitting on. So beyond the town, beyond the residential area, there are mountain ranges of polygons and hills and valleys of shapes and matter. All these other landscapes are just basic lines, basic shapes, and it seems like you're exploring something that is in the middle of being created. Perhaps most strangely though, is an area known as the West Platform. This area is a maze of structures that you might run into off in the expanses of Paradise 772 that looks very eerily similar to level 0, except here there are no textures, there are no buzzing lights, there's no carpet, there's no anything like that. There is just outlines of walls and ceilings and lights that look like level 0. This area is the out of bounds area, the area that you can get to by glitching out of level 0 incorrectly. You're kind of seeing what's behind the curtain, you know what I'm saying? But the entirety of Paradise 772 is so uncanny and unnatural for your human 3D body to be in. Since the entire paradise is made of shapes and geometry, your body here is kind of like Play-Doh being constantly molded and morphed into different shapes and geometries, which means that getting trapped here would mean you're constantly being unfolded and refolded into different shapes and sizes and everything, which is exactly why at the beginning of this video I said that getting trapped here in Paradise 772, here in the nullscape, the out of bounds, is the worst thing that could probably happen to you as a wanderer through the backrooms. I mean, I don't see what could be worse than that, but if you know, let me know in the comments. I'd be glad to hear. There's this infinity of shapes and colors, but there's no texture, there's no life, and surrounding this entire paradise is this darkness, this void that you can't explore. Truly, coming to the out of bounds, the nullscape, is the worst mistake you can make in the backrooms. There is no exit, there is no life, there is nothing but unfolding matter, and the out of bounds between untextured places that I've discussed. Some people say that this paradise is an escape to reality and that unfolding and refolding yourself in your own geometry is the only way you can glitch out of the backrooms, but who knows. Some people also say that this is just a trap level and that those rumors of the exit are fake. But now that you've heard all there is to hear about Paradise 772, now you know to never venture outside of the bounds of the backrooms. Level 306, or AUTORUN, is the 307th level inside of the backrooms. The Expanse takes the visual appearance of an infinite series of airport hallways, walkways, escalators, and moving paths. And all of that is inside this dark, oppressive atmosphere. The hallways are full of very strange, very enigmatic layouts and geometry, as well as harmful creatures that lurk around inside of that darkness. Now, I'm sure most of you that are watching this have been inside of an airport in real life, so you've seen the moving walkways, the treadmill type things, as well as the escalators that are inside of them. But if you have not been inside one for some reason, there's these walkways on the floor that can essentially help you speed walk down the hallways to get to your plane faster. They're like treadmills that go in one direction, forward or backwards, and you can pretty much walk 3 or 4 times as fast on top of them than you could on the regular floor. And that style of walkway is what makes up the majority of the walkways in this level, and that'll be important in a few minutes. Now let me get to the cool part of the level. The entire layout, the entire design of this place is notably confusing. It's very disorienting, doesn't make much sense to anyone who comes here. And because of this, psychological distress is a very common thing among explorers, so make sure if you do come here, and if you explore it, don't let that get to you. The hallways of the level stretch out pretty widely, and each panel underneath your feet and on the floor is made up of 4 to 6 of those moving walkways that I just talked about, going at varying speeds and varying directions. The hallways wrap and they turn in opposite ways, and they go up, they go down, and it all makes for this giant machinery confusing layout. You won't really know the direction the floor moves in until you step on the floor and it moves with you. So be careful with that as well. And on top of the moving floors, there are also escalators that go up and down that can take you to different floors of this complex. The place is very large, very confusing, so there's a ton of these escalators. They connect seamlessly as well to those moving walkways, so you could be going straight on a moving walkway and then go down on an escalator. Just make sure you don't trip and fall, or you might be eaten or something. Scattered around this level's hallways and moving floors are these small connector areas that are made out of tiled concrete. These places seem to be like the physical parts of the level that hold it together, kind of like the cornerstones. But more importantly, they work as a kind of rest spot for people that are running through the level. Since, like I said, most of the floors are moving, it's nice that these areas don't move. You can kind of relax here for a second. The temperature and the ambience inside of the airport is very unique. It's actually really cold, and it hovers around 50 degrees Fahrenheit, or 10 degrees Celsius, and since most of the surfaces here are metal and industrial, it makes everything really, really cold to the touch. It's also very dark, very grainy, very oppressive inside, and that means you can't really see far ahead of you, as the lights in the ceiling either do not work, or if they do, they barely shine, and they don't really help you, which leaves some of the level in complete darkness. While walking around this place, you'll hear soft mechanical humming and whirring of the conveyor belt floors and the escalators. You'll hear the calm hum of the lights, if you see any, and you might also hear random announcements come over the PA system inside of the airport that you're in, and these announcements typically have unintelligible words and phrases being said, don't make any sense. But whatever you do not listen to those voices on the PA system. Oftentimes as well, while you're walking around, you'll hear distorted gurgling and voices from underneath and around you anywhere in the level, so navigate at your own risk. It's assumed these are entities, but we are just guessing. The moving floors of the level are also not consistent. There's not just one that goes straight and one that goes behind you. They change constantly. They change speeds, they change directions at random, arbitrary times, and no pattern has been identified. So be careful when you're walking around so you don't lose your balance, so you don't lose your way, because you have no idea what is lurking inside the darkness around you. And speaking of things lurking inside the darkness, let's get to the entity section. Hounds and smilers and skin stealers and moths and dullers and partygoers are the most common entities that you'll probably see in this level. They often roam around these very dark expanses in very small, tight-knit groups, which means surviving an encounter with them is very low. You're probably not going to. These entities, just like the wanderers who come here, are subject to the moving floors. The level does affect the entities, so they could try to chase after you, but the floors could push them back. Or they could be running towards you and the floors are helping them by going faster. I guess it really just depends on your luck, to be honest, but it is important to note that the level's effects do affect the entities as well as yourself. The announcements that I mentioned earlier seem to make the entities very angry, or like rile them up in a way. So because of this, make sure you stay away from areas where the speakers are the loudest. Don't go near them. Non-hostile entities can also be encountered in this level. Things like blubcats have been seen and documented. And in order to survive this level and all its floors and all its loops and escalators and all that stuff, you need to make sure that you watch your step. That's the most important piece of advice I can give you. Watch your step and avoid walkways that move backwards. Make sure you stay away from the voices on the PA system, make as little noise as possible, that way you don't attract the rest of the creatures here, and do not try to break the glass on the walls of the level to get outside. It's futile, and it'll probably result in you getting attacked. So if you take your time, if you follow the conveyor belts and you go forward the best you can and jump from path to path correctly, you're probably going to survive the level pretty decently. But this level is a class 4, so try not to make any noise or rattling or whatever, because those groups of entities are walking around the level constantly and they're hungry and you're food. To enter the level, you can no-clip through the floor on level 0, which is pretty scary because you could just like be new to the backrooms at level 0 and then fall through a floor and gets into this level, which would be horrible. But if you want to exit, you can walk through the hallways until you find a restroom exit door that is unlocked. You can open it up and you'll be sent to level 189. Level negative 989 of the backrooms opens with a very ominous question. Do you miss the water slides? This question sets up the nostalgic vibe that the entire level has, and it kind of gets you in the right headspace for when you dive right into this level. So while I go about explaining the level, have that question in your mind. Do you miss the water slides? The level has been given a survival difficulty of class integral because of some mental and physical hazards, as well as a single entity that lives in the level. The Sunken Land is a humongous indoor water park complex with a few other features that I'll get into later. Except, this indoor water park is not a wholesome one from real life. It's not just got wave pools and cool slides. No, this place has the vibe of the bottom of the ocean, giving the level an atmosphere of being very far away from life, very lonely, and overall very isolating. The level itself is split into a ton of different parts and places of interests, and I'll be going over every single one of them in order in this video, of course. But the main ones are the park itself, the bridge, and the peak. But before I dive into all those specific places, I want to go over the basics of the level. The sounds that echo around Sunken Land resemble water trickling and dropping, as well as the soft sounds of rain running through pipes. The floor of this water park consists typically of knee-deep pools, with randomly placed platforms throughout where you can walk. These pool areas on the floor are very similar to the pool rooms, except this is kind of like an indoor water park. Fake rock formations are also placed around the level that kind of add to that bottom of the ocean ambience. The level page describes that part as artificial rock formations appear inside the park as well, resembling tall ravines or small hills. The layout of the level is organic, shaped by concrete walls, bridges, and water slides. It's pretty random, but never non-Euclidean, end quote. Staying in this water park for long periods of time is really not a good idea. Although sliding down the slides and swimming in the pools is pretty fun, the level actually seems to cause discomfort and paranoia to those who come and stay. Symptoms of overstaying your welcome include forgetfulness, distress, discomfort, and overall uneasiness. The warm, calm water that you once knew when you got here will turn cold and unforgiving. Your ears will begin to ring, and you'll constantly want to look over your shoulder. You'll feel like you don't belong, even though you just felt like this was an awesome level. I'll get into more of the symptoms and their causes later on, because it gets kind of crazy. Sunken Land gets its name because of the way it looks. I mean, it literally looks like you shoved the water park to the bottom of the ocean and enclosed it in glass. There's this murky fog that floats around the confines of the level that really give it more of an ominous place, and it ups the confusion as well. Because it's so foggy sometimes, you really can't see the right path to take, and it just makes your mind scattered. Now this level is also mysteriously not connected to any other watery levels in the backrooms. There's no entrance from the pool rooms or the tainted pools or anything like that. It's kind of just its own thing, off, alone, and far away from any other form of life. You are completely and utterly abandoned and deserted when you're in this level. The floor of the level, when it's not covered in those pools, seems to be covered in some kind of yellow tile, as well as other colored tiles you might run into. They feel like concrete to touch, or almost like enamel. Like I said, very similar to the pool rooms, except the pools here typically don't get too deep. The park feels very cool and moderate in its climate. It's not very hot, but it's also not freezing cold. It's kind of just in the middle. That is until you stay for longer and you start to get colder and feel more uncomfortable. And in fact, like I said, while you're walking around for the beginning part, this level will be comforting and calming and relaxing. It kind of feels like this oasis where there's just calm water, slides, kind of these cool places you can just relax in until those feelings of discomfort and uneasiness begin to appear. But before that happens, let's get into those 3 areas that I mentioned first that you can explore. First up is the park area. So the park is the beginning of where every wanderer will start this level at. This is where Sunken Land begins, and this is where all these random water park structures like slides and pathways are at. The slides here twist and turn, and the paths here create these maze-like expanses of these tiles that lead to one another. Everything here feels almost AI generated. It feels like you shouldn't be able to explore and interact with it, but here you are doing both of them. Each of the slides can be accessed, and you can actually go up and down them like a normal water park from real life. This is kind of the safest area in the entire level, and this is likely where you'll want to stay for the longest duration of your time here. This is the place that's inside, it's kind of safe from whatever's outside, and it's just a good place to hide from the entity that lives here. I'll get into that in a second, but essentially the entity is kind of attracted by sounds, and since there's so much crashing water and running water here, like in the lazy rivers and in the waterfalls, the entity kind of can't sense you. Next area is the bridge. Now the bridge acts kind of as a central point to the level, almost a hub, if you will. The level page describes the bridge as follows: having multiple brightly painted bridges stretching to different places. The bridges float, they don't have any supports, and most of the time, they act as water slides. They twist and turn, just like the water slides in the level. And even some of them have running water, making it difficult to travel on them." End quote. These bridges pretty much connect you to the different water park areas and the different lazy rivers and pathways. The next area is the peak. Now the peak is mainly used as the exit from this water park. It's definitely the safest way to escape, which again I will explain later. I know I keep saying that, but I actually will. And it consists of this maze-like structure of small lazy rivers that you'll have to traverse through to get to the middle structure. Once you get to this tower thing, you can allegedly exit through the staircase that leads directly through the middle up. If you follow the lazy rivers past this peak and this tower area, you'll get to the waterfall area, which is kind of this more hidden part of the level where everything falls down below it. It's a place of horror and claustrophobia. It's a place you want to avoid. And this place beyond the waterfalls is called the Flush. So the Flush is this area underneath the park. This is a huge system of interconnected, claustrophobic sewer tunnels. This is where all the water in the level runs through and gets sifted through and sent to the different slides and pools. It's not a gross place or anything like that. It's not a sewer system, and the water actually smells of soft chlorine and chemicals. But it is very claustrophobic, and there's knee-deep water rushing throughout all of them, so it kind of takes a little bit of effort to even explore. The layout of these tunnels is very similar to the pool room's hallways, where some of them can be deeper, some can have these huge drops in them, and some can be just very topsy-turvy and treacherous to traverse. The water normally just runs softly with its current through the tunnels, and the entire vibe inside of here is loneliness. You feel so disconnected from everything, and essentially you feel like this is never going to end. These tunnels go through the entire length of this massive water park, and for a long time you'll be stuck in them, forced to walk around and explore. You can lose your mind very quickly here, and you can lose your direction very quickly as well. So if you can avoid it, don't go down these waterfalls, don't go too deep in the level, avoid them at all costs. So what I just explained, you know, the park, the bridge, the tunnels, the peak, all of that is inside of Sunken Land. That is in this water park area. But there's also an exterior of the park that has its own strange and own enigmatic features, which of course I will get into right now. This area is located outside where the water slides are, and it's very different, has a completely different vibe. The outdoor area consists of multiple small water parks scattered out in a more normal setting. It doesn't feel like you're underwater here, there's no mist or anything, but it still feels strange and foreign because these water parks feel abandoned. They're connected by asphalt and not tiles like in Sunken Land, and they feel like water parks that you've been to as a child, above ground, regular water parks. Once you walk past these outdoor water parks, you'll run into the beach area and the beachside place in this level. It's thought that this beach backs up to the ocean where Sunken Land is located in. Since it feels like it's underwater, it's believed Sunken Land is under that ocean, and this beach is kind of on the border of it. These ocean and beachfront places are dotted with these damp and empty and strange buildings, like cafes and motels. These places are kind of like last stops while you explore the outside part of the level, since there's really no resources in the entire level at all, except for these little buildings. It really feels like an abandoned tourist trap. There's these shacks and stuff like that. It's all empty and eroded and damp, and all this outside area feels so forgotten. Now even then, that's not the end of the border of this level, because you can travel past all those places of interest. The indoor, underwater water park, the exterior, all of that, you can travel past all that, and you'll get to the furthest reaches of the level, which is past the parking lots for those water parks. It's called the fenced limit. This is essentially just this repeating row of fenced walls that act kind of as a boundary to Sunken Land and all its contents. No one knows what's past this wall, but it doesn't seem like it's a good idea to jump in and explore it. It's believed that a very large mass of unexplored things exist and live and thrive beyond this fence. But to get to the fence itself, it's a journey because you have to make it through the underwater water park, up above to the exterior, go through that water park, and get through the beachside area with all the little shacks, then you'll find the parking lot, and then that's where this fence is. But all of what I just described to you is Sunken Land, and none of what I've described is outright dangerous, right? It's just these water parks. There is a very scary and dangerous creature that inhabits this level, and it's called BOIM 989. This is a very strange creature that very little documentation is done about. It gets the name Boim, because it's named after the first person that found this level, Davy Boehm. The level page describes this creature as the following, quote, presumably over 7 feet tall and has pitch black skin, ring-light white glowing pupils, and most notably, moose antlers. When BOIM 989 opens its mouth, hundreds of razor-sharp teeth are revealed, end quote. So it's some kind of hybrid humanoid moose type thing, and this entity seems to be able to know the level and its layout like the back of its hand. It kind of always knows where wanderers are at, almost like you're invading its home. And the way it hunts down and attacks wanderers is very, very scary. It doesn't just run up and grab you or anything like other creatures. It chooses a much more slower and more purposeful hunting tactic. You see, its stalking begins underwater and Sunken Land. It'll start by stalking and watching its prey, which is you, from far away. It'll make small noises like splashes and scratches and taps on the water slides and in the water down there. And these small noises are just enough to keep you on your toes. As far as you thought, you were alone in Sunken Land. So you look over your shoulder after you hear something, only to see nothing else. When the entity is nearby physically, the wanderer will begin to struggle to breathe. Their lungs seem to be filling up with water, and the air will become hard to inhale. The only way to stop this effect is to escape that immediate area, because if you don't, the entity will begin to attack the weakened wanderer, and it will consume them. So that is the only way to know when this creature is nearby you, is if your lungs begin to feel heavy and water-filled. Because of this, you need to pay attention always. Don't ever get too safe here. Don't ever think you're invincible just because it's such a melancholic and calm place. It's not. Although most of the times, like I said, the entity will not outright attack you because there's too much noise and it can't really locate you. But if you go up to the outside area and walk around where there's no noise, you're more likely to become a victim. This entire level is just notably and shockingly empty. Everything feels very clean and kept up, but no one has ever been seen cleaning them. The pools, the water, the lazy rivers, the water slides, everything is connected. It's mangled together into a watery hellscape. It's almost like an addictive thing to walk around and explore because there's so many different places you can see. It has this unexplainable aura. The dripping water, the soft, cool breeze, the very slow, lazy rivers that you can just relax in forever. It seems like a dream to many. If you want to enter this level and see it all for yourself, you can find an indoor hot tub in any level, jump inside of it, and you'll be sent to the water park area. There's also a very small chance that by going down any water slide you find, you'll end up going down a water slide and falling into the pools here. To exit, you have to go to that peak place I described that all the lazy rivers lead to and climb up that big yellow staircase, and you'll be sent out to level -33. Now that you've heard the entire level's description and all that it offers and all that kind of stuff, you can kind of understand the question at the very beginning of the description of the level that I talked about. Do you miss the water slides? That question really captures the essence of this entire level and the melancholic uneasiness that it provides. These strange, plasticky expanses of water slides with lazy rivers and soft, rumbling water, all coupled with this nostalgic design. This is what the Backrooms is meant to be.